Start recording. Okay, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the 46th edition of the Tourism Online Forum series in March 2025. And tonight we are delighted to have you joining us for tonight's talk, which is hosted by the Center for Advanced Tourism Research, CATS, at the Hokkaido University. And this is your host, Mo. And for tonight's session, it's indeed an honor to have Suki Lee Sensei. I hope I pronounce your name right.
You did.
Yeah, so we can just call him Lee Sensei. Uh, to share his research about the history and the development of the city of Seoul. I think this topic is not only interesting from tourism research perspective, it's also very practical for our petitioner and industry audience. And Lee Sensei is a professor of hotel and tourism management and the director of a tourism industry data analysis lab, TIDAL, at the Sejong University, Seoul, Republic of Korea. And Lee Sensei's research focuses on the use of applied economy models and methods to study the behavior of tourism business and tourists, including the spatial econometrics techniques to estimate the performance of regions and businesses based on their relative locations. He has been a recipient of multiple grants from a National Research Foundation, NRF of Korea, and is active in public and private consultancy, including development for the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, master plan for the digitalization of the tourism sector in Bhutan, as well as for the Korean Tourism Organization, KTO, a master plan for the human resource development in the tourism sector in Mongolia. And he is a winner of a Sejong University 2021 A. Jong Hong Award, a prestigious award given to selected professors of the university for their outstanding service. And please note that this online lecture will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel of CATS. And so let's invite Lee Sensei to talk about his lecture. And please leave your comments and question below in the Q&A box. We also offer our captions generation. If you want to read the subtitles, you can also click on the subtitle function. Okay, now the floor is yours, Lee Sensei.
Hey, thank you very much, Mo Sensei, and it is a great privilege and pleasure to meet everyone. I can't see you, but I'm assuming that you're on YouTube, so it's a nice occasion. Thank you for inviting me once again. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about history and development of the city of Seoul. So this is, I would say, loosely related to my research. I do research about location, and usually location has a lot to do with various variables, including accessibility, transportation, but also history and culture. And even just, as a tourist, one day you might visit Seoul. Some of you might already have. And I thought that this could be something that would be of interest, not just to tourism researchers, but also general public. So, um, and once again, thank you, Mo Sensei, for introducing me. As he mentioned, I'm currently working as a professor at the Sejong University Department of Hospitality and Tourism Management. I also have a small industry related research center. Excuse me. It's called Tourism Industry Data Analytics Lab. We do consultancy, and some of the works Mo Sensei already mentioned, but we do not only do public sector work, we also do private sector work. The most recent one being for Hyundai Auto. So we collect various kinds of data and try to find meaning out of it. I do not only use quantitative models, but also any kinds of data. At this point in my research career, I try to make use of any meaningful data and started realizing that, qualitative data is actually very meaningful in many ways. So I would be happy to work with you if you're interested in this type of research. I'd be happy to work with in conjunction with my good friend Mo Sensei. So if you are interested, please feel free to be in touch or send me an email. So a little bit about myself, my background. I before I joined Sejong as a faculty, I worked in at Temple University. This is in Philadelphia. There's also Temple University campuses in Japan. So I was actually amusing myself the last time because if I stayed at Temple, I would have had better chances to, be in Japan because I think some teaching appointments are available for faculty in the main campus, which is in Philadelphia. So that's too bad. But I also enjoy my time in Sejong because I'm also an alumni of Sejong University. The program I'm working in right now, I was a product of that program before. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself, and then let me get started with my presentation. So I think many of you might think that, Seoul nowadays is very big city. It's a mega city actually. So population of about 10 million. That's like Tokyo or Osaka. Greater Seoul is about 20 million or plus. So that's also similar to Tokyo and Kansai region. Now, but many of you do not know that Seoul is not what it is right now. At least, about 1950s, as you can see in the photo, there was a significant meaning to this city, which I'll explain in my slides. But before, there wasn't so much of development going on. So, and even in the 1970s, as you can see, no skyrise, high-rise buildings, skyscrapers, and most of the developments were actually after the 80s and 90s. So how this city has been developing with a little bit of history, I would like to focus on my presentation today. So Seoul today, once again, is very big. It's the capital of Korea. Now, the population did hit 10 million a few years ago, but then it's starting to decrease because of gentrification and many other things. Greater Seoul, 26 million. So cities close to Seoul, like in the Gyeonggi province, maybe you heard about Incheon. That's where the biggest international airport is. Bundang and some other areas of Gyeonggi are doing actually quite well in terms of economic development as well. So Greater Seoul is absorbing some of the resident population of Seoul because the infrastructure is good and transportation is connected. Now, international residents, not as many as I'd hope. So about 440,000 inside Seoul, which is about 5% of the Seoul proper area. Um, 9 subway lines to 189 stations. I know people in many countries would be impressed by this, except for Japan, right? So Japan has better connectivity with regard to subway lines. 1.18 million businesses registered inside Seoul, and this accounts for 33.2% of all exports. If you extend that to Greater Seoul, about 72.3. So we say usually Seoul and its vicinity accounts for more than half of everything. Population, because we're about 48 million. Uh, Other things like economic activities, culture, education. These are the things that would benefit significantly by locating inside Seoul, and that by that I mean Seoul proper. And average salary in Seoul is about 46 million Korean won. This would translate to about 5 million Japanese yen. This is second after Ulsan at 47 million Korean won, which is a bit more than 5 million Japanese yen. Now, Ulsan is a city built by a company named Hyundai that makes auto and other stuff. So that city, you have a major employer, and most of the people living in that city is working with Hyundai or Samsung. So that's actually an outlier. Except for that, you also could easily imagine that Seoul is a city where average income would be high. There are 25 districts in Seoul. And as you can see here, let me see if I can do this without failing. So this river, I'm sure many of you may know, is the Han River. Okay, so to the north of the river, we say Gangbuk. Buk is north. This is Gangnam, south. Nam is south. This is Gangdong, east, and this is Gangseo. So Gang is river. So we're just, using the river as a reference to denote the location of the district based on the river. Many of you may have heard Gangnam Style, the song by Psy, and Gangnam is here. So this is simply to refer the district is south of the river. Now, why it has the connotation that we place on the southern districts nowadays, I will explain in a few slides. So because the city is separated by the river, we have many bridges connecting the districts of north and south. So there are altogether 28 bridges connecting between the northern and southern districts of Seoul. And Sejong University is just right here, right here. So from Sejong, if you cross one bridge, you're at Gangnam fairly soon. It takes about 15 minutes without traffic. So we say we're relatively in a good location. So the bridges that you can choose to go to Gangnam is either Sangsu or Yeongdo. Now, the historic Seoul, the old one, is actually smaller than the Seoul we see today. As you can see here, the four gates, the East Gate, the South Gate, the West Gate, and the North Gate are the gates to Seoul proper in the Joseon Dynasty era. So if you think about the nobilities and royalties that used to be allowed, I would say allowed to live within Seoul before they had different names like Hanyang, but these are really selected few people that were in the country. So many of the government employees also they were not allowed to live inside these four gates. They would be commuting every day from outside Seoul, Hanyang, and then they would have to cross one of these gates to report and work inside the office. So there's a saying among the Koreans, if you really can want to say you're from Seoul, then you should be at least a third generation strictly living inside the four gates. Other than that, you can't really say you're from Seoul. So Gangnam nowadays is around here, which is outside the South Gate. So you can imagine how many are actually from Seoul. Not too many, right? Not too many. I think many big cities are like that. Not sure if you know, but in 2008, the Namdaemun, the South Gate was on fire and it was destroyed. So we had to rebuild it. Now it's back. So you see that tourists are taking the tour bus and you see it, but someone had a bad day and there was no specific reason why he would set fire on the number one national treasure. Actually, Southgate, Namdaemun is the number one national treasure of Korea. If you look at the list, it's on top, but not too many people, I say, would be guarding, looking out for Southgate. So it was destroyed once. It's now rebuilt, but yeah, something not good for tourism. So Seoul, once again, pre-Joseon era. Not sure if you are familiar with Korean history. Maybe some of you have watched some K-drama that is loosely based on Korean history. But pre-Joseon era, we had three kingdoms. 고구려, which would be corresponding to today's North Korea, 고구려, 백제, which would be Seoul, and some vicinity regions of Seoul nowadays, and Silla, which would be more or less today's Busan. Okay, so and Gyeongju, so the south part. Now, Hansong, Hansong is the name Baekje, one of the three kingdoms used when they were capital of Baekje. So the initial name is Hansong. We still have this pronoun used here and there. And Hansong is maybe better known in Japan because back then, Baekje had close ties with Japan. So there was cultural exchanges, there were people flowing, and other economic activities. Now, after Silla unified the peninsula by through alliance with Tang Dynasty of China, they changed the name to Hanyang, not Hansong. So Silla unified the peninsula and claimed pretty much all the land of Baekje, and Tang Dynasty claimed pretty much all land of Goguryeo, which is now North Korea. So name of Hanyang University, not sure if you heard about Hanyang, they also have a tourism program actually derived from the Hanyang, the name the Silla used in the unified Silla dynasty period. One surname, Ham, not Ham, Ham, actually we can identify their clan, and that dates back to this period. So if your last name, surname is Ham in Korea, you can legitimately say that you are from Seoul, or your clan is from Seoul. Gwangju, Yangju, Hanyang, these are different names. And Hansong, during the Korea dynasty, after Silla, Korea, this is when Korea as a country was first exposed to the Western world. We still use this name. Now, Koreans never say Goryeo. Goryeo is the dynasty before Joseon. We use 대한민국, which is Republic of Korea. But the Korea dynasty is the first dynasty exposed to the Western world, so we still keep this name, right? So various names, Gwangju, Yangju, Hanyang, Hansong, all of these were used interchangeably during the time before Joseon, Now, in Korea dynasty, Goryeo dynasty, I should have to say, the capital was Kaesong for 434 years. We say Joseon dynasty went about 500 years. Before that, Goryeo dynasty went about 435 years. Now, it's a long time, but Kaesong was chosen for many reasons. It's geographically in the center of the peninsula. And also, it does have some significances historically. Now, it's a part of North Korea. Kaesong was almost, if the Korean War has ended a bit earlier, Kaesong would have been, I think, or a bit later, part of the South Korea nowadays. But unfortunately, it's still very close to South Korea, and it was claimed by North Korea. It's one of the four major historical cities of Korean Peninsula. So Seoul, which was the capital of Baekje, Gyeongju, which was the capital of Silla, Pyongyang, which was the capital of Goguryeo and now the capital of North Korea. Kaesong is one of those four cities. So now it doesn't have any let's say, a status as the capital city, but it was selected as a I would say, test bed. So South and North Korea, when the relationship was not so bad, we had a joint project called the Kaesong Industrial Complex, which combines South Korean capital and North Korean labor so that we can manufacture at lower cost. However, as you all know, the relations have been deteriorating. So this is the opening. And then a few years ago, when North Korea was not very happy with South Korean diplomacy, they decided to just blow up the building. This is where the headquarters are. So now gone. It's too bad, I guess. So that's Kaesong. Now, a little bit more of Korean history. I'm hoping that some of you may have come across these shows in the past. So Joseon was founded actually by Lee Seung-ge. He was a warlord of Korea dynasty. Goryeo dynasty. So he was a warlord with many soldiers, and his job was to guard the northern border of Goryeo, which would be against back then China. Now, because that was the only land border, Korea is a peninsula, and he was sort of like the Jon Snow of Goryeo dynasty. I'm not sure if you're into Game of Thrones, if you watched it, but he guarded the northern border. So he had a lot of soldiers. He was very powerful, well respected. And then you can imagine the king was not very happy about it. So after a while, he just decided to um, take the throne, and he founded Joseon, thereby ending the Goryeo dynasty after 434 years. So after he um, founded Joseon, he decided to move the capital from Kaesong to Hanyang and Hansong in 1394. That was after Joseon was founded, a bit after. And in order to move to Hanyang or Hansong, which is now Seoul, he built a nice palace called Gyeongbokgung. So Gyeongbokgung is the main attraction in Seoul. If you're interested in history, this is a place where international tourists would wear Korean costume. It's called hanbok in order to sightsee. It's very easy to notice. Now, his son, the second king Jeongjong, moved back to Kaesong in 1399. Uh, Now, there was a rebellion of the, sorry, this is not Prince. This is not Price. It's Prince. Uh, the founder, Lee Seong-gae's sons, actually uh, rebelled against their father because they thought that the prince that contributed the least to founding of Joseon was made the crown prince. So they disagreed, and then throne was succeeded to Taejong Ibangwon. This is the Jeongjong, but Taejong was the one who was credited for the contributing the most when Joseon was being founded. And then in this series of events, Taejong actually killed two of his brothers, the crown prince and the other one, who had different mothers. So it was a huge event in Joseon history, early Joseon history, and after the throne was succeeded, because a lot of killings were done in this palace, Gyeongbokgung Palace. It's a famous story. Um, the new king, Taejong, the third king, actually built another palace, Changdeokgung, because he didn't want to be inside the palace where he killed his brothers, simply put. So he built a smaller palace to use for himself instead of staying in Gyeongbokgung full time. Now, Daejeon was also a candidate because of its location. It's approximately in the center. It was considered, but they never moved to Daejeon. So that's Hansong. So Korea Dynasty, the capital was Kaesong. After Joseon was founded, they moved to Hansong, which is now Seoul. But then the move was a bit delayed because of the incident, the rebellion of the princes, and then the king who eventually took power, the third king, Taejong, he refused to move into Gyeongbokgung Palace, so he mainly stayed in Changdeokgung, this one, until he retired. And his son didn't have an issue with staying at Gyeongbokgung, so eventually his son moved into Gyeongbokgung, and then Gyeongbokgung became the main royal palace of Joseon Dynasty. And you can pretty much see that this is the Hansong, which is a Seoul of Joseon Dynasty. So as you can see, at this point, Gangnam is not developed at all, right? So this part maybe extends further, but it's just mostly about 7 districts of northern Seoul nowadays, including Myeongdong and Dongdaemun. Dongdaemun would be here, Myeongdong would be somewhere here, but only this part would have been considered the capital city at that point. So only the Gangbok area nowadays is Hanyang and Hansong, and as you can see, Gangnam, just a lot of fields and nothing everywhere. So after his, by him I mean Taejong, after Taejong's son moved in finally, and his son's name is Sejong. So name of my university is uh, comes after the great King Sejong, who made Hangul, the Korean language, or its characters. And after Sejong, they started to use Gyeongbokgung. By the way, Taejong, I already mentioned his reluctance to use Gyeongbokgung, but he did have to come to Gyeongbokgung for official ceremonies. For example, if there are people from China, diplomats, he would have to meet them, but then he cannot meet them outside Gyeongbokgung because the Gyeongbokgung has official status as the royal palace. So when he did come, he made a separate venue for these events. This is called Gyeonghaeru inside Gyeongbokgung. So when he had to use it, Taejong mostly just stayed in this pavilion, Gyeonghaeru. And then he did his business, maybe meet the ambassador, and then go back to Changdeokgung, which is outside Gyeongbokgung. So I don't think I can play a video at this point, but Gyeongbokgung is one of the major tourism attractions of Korea, and BTS, who is a very loyal ambassador of tourism for Seoul city, performed at Gyeongbokgung. This is actually not something that is ordinary because Gyeongbokgung does not approve of such performances, but BTS has so much influence. And I think Koreans might have a little bit of bias when they say they're going to be on US television. So when they are on US television shows, they get permission from the city and also the ministry for these performances, which we believe would be a nice promotion for tourism, Seoul tourism. So maybe if you're interested, these are on YouTube. You can look it up. And yeah, there are quite a few of these. And this is during COVID. So limited means to market the tourism destination, usually one that is effective, one that's, viral online. After that, Joseon went about 500 years. And after that, there was a period of Japanese colonization, and the name was Keijo. So this is the name. So pretty much the same as Hansong, but as you can see, a bit further. So this is the Keijo era borders. So as you can see, before it was about this big. Now, during the Japanese time, we extended Seoul just a little bit. So this is the part, Yeongdeungpo is the primary area of expansion. So before we had about 6 districts. Now, after this time, about 7 districts. And this is the municipal office back in the time. This building is still around in Myeongdong area. So this is the I think this might be the district office. There was actually there were some people who are looking for these manhole covers. As you can see, this dates back to the Keijo era. So a lot of tourists actually, not just international, but Korean tourists were looking for these manhole covers everywhere throughout Seoul because some of these are still remaining. No need to replace it. And it was maybe about 10 years ago, it was more or less like a game and people were taking photos and uploading them. So we do have some traits from this period as well. So there are imperial universities in Japan, right? These are the good universities. Back in the day, Seoul National University was also founded as a Keijo Imperial University. So Now it's changed its name to Seoul National, but the headquarters of the Imperial University, as you can see, are still here in Seoul. It's now converted into a public building where they house artists. So it's called the Home of Artists. It's a bit cheesy, but yeah, it's still there. And, most of the things we still try to preserve. The university headquarters moved to a different building, but yeah, the structure is still there. So the first department store in Seoul, this is the Miskoshi department store in Kejo, so this building. Now, after the war, which is the Second World War, and perhaps up to the Korean War period, the US uh, military command, Seoul Command, used this building as PX. PX is post exchange, so it's like a store. Now that was again sold to Shinsegae. Shinsegae is you could consider a distant relative of Samsung, and they're the retail 재벌 retail group. So they bought the department store, and they're still claiming that they have the first department store in Seoul. There's a bit of a debate whether they should count the years of U.S. Post Exchange and also Mitsukoshi department store, but as you can see, the structure is renovated, but still pretty much the same. It's still there. So some things that we still preserve. Um, Not sure if you know this specific TV show, but there was a time where, a Korean mob was sort of considered um romantic. I'm not sure how else to put it, but many of the places that were on this TV show is preserved as is. So that's one of the reasons why we can still see that. And the reason we preserve this, although these are in prime locations, because we think that has a significant historical significance. So this is the Kim Do-han. He was the most famous uh, mob leader. He was considered the best fighter, I think. There are a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows about him. He actually went on to, after uh, Republic of Korea was founded, he actually went on to become a congressman. Now, his daughter had a son, and he's also an actor. Many of you might know him from Chumong. So he actually specializes in historic TV shows, but interesting, right? He never played his grandfather though. And I think one of the reporters asked him, he said that it's just too much pressure. um, Sadaemon Prison. So this is also dating back to Keijo era, and we still preserve it as a museum, as a tourist attraction. Recent use of this prison is you can see in the movie Harbin. This is about An Jung-gun, and we still have a statue of him inside, and which is also a tourism attraction. However, this Capitol Hall was demolished after Republic of Korea was founded. The reason being, this is the Blue House, so we needed a better view. If not, I think we would have preserved that as well, because it does have historic significance. And the Seoul Station, we also have, as you can see, this was the Keijo station. We converted it to Seoul Station afterwards. And then now, as many of you might know, we have express train, KTX, which cannot be accommodated by this train station. So the new Seoul Station is in a different location next to this Lotte Mart. And this one is I heard it's a comprehensive cultural complex. I never saw anyone using it. I never heard about anyone using it, but it is said that you can use it. You can actually rent it if you have any activities. So, and the prices, I don't think that expensive. So maybe in the future you might want to, especially if you have some, if that event has some ties or relationship with anything from this era, I think would be a nice venue. Baeginje House. It was built by Lee Wan-yong's nephew in 1913. So not sure if you know about Bukchon. This is where all the traditional housing is. Nowadays, we use that these places rented out for movies and stuff. So this is one of the scenes in the movie, and you can see the actual inside of the house. So this also dates to Joseon era, later Joseon era. Seoul Station today. The KTX station was opened in 2009, and you can actually see that in the new prequel movie. Not sure if you watched The Train to Busan, but there's going to be a prequel, Seoul Station. So this movie, Train to Busan, was showing the train ride from Seoul Station to Busan. The prequel would be showing what's happened in the Seoul Station before that, right? So this year it's opening. I'm not sure if it's going to be good, but if you like the Train to Busan, maybe it's worth trying. And it will show the Seoul Station today. Okay, so far, I'd just like to summarize a bit. So what happened after Joseon, or before Goryeo dynasty, there was a lot of changes because the countries were changing. There were many countries, and then they unified, and then they changed. And then after Goryeo, the capital was Kaesong. Now after Joseon, capital became Hanyang or Hansong. But then there was a little bit of change after the Japanese era. So a bit of expansion. And after, excuse me, Republic of Korea was founded, and then they started merging the Gangnam area to Seoul. So below Hangang, below Han River, is only after that time, which is like 1960s, 50s, and 60s, right? So it's very recent, very recent. And this is where my apartment is, Jungnam District. It was merged in 1998. It's not even shown here, but my district is actually the last district to be merged into Seoul. Nowadays, they're trying to merge this part where Gimpo Airport is. Discussions are underway, but many people are wondering, why would you want to make Seoul bigger? Because, Seoul already is big. So that's sort of the thing that's happening. Now, if you're not aware of the development that has been taking after Gangnam was merged, the south of the river part, this part, there's actually a movie out. It's called Gangnam 1970. So because many people were living within the northern districts of Seoul proper, even before, there was not too much, room for development. And the road network is a bit tricky because there's a lot of hills and mountains. So if they were to expand Seoul, the only way was to do it in Gangnam, where there was pretty much nothing. And then, as you can see here, in the 1970s and 80s, they start building these tall buildings. So a lot of high-rise buildings would have been built, and the road network is, from the scratch. So the traffic is not as bad, and many people decided to move to Gangnam these days. There's a lot of conflicts related to development and anything related to land in Korea. So this movie is something that portrays that. Not sure if you're a fan of Filipino music, but there's a song by Freddie Aguilar that was used as a soundtrack in this movie, so I would recommend. And it does show Gangnam area where there was virtually nothing back in the day, so might be interesting. And so Gangnam now, I'm sure you know Gangnam by the name of the song, famous one, Gangnam Style, right? So something that you can expect by hearing the word Gangnam, maybe posh, they're rich, a lot of money, expensive land, and all of these are true. So we say there are three Gangnam districts, 서초, Gangnam, and Songpa, and these are known for most expensive apartments and very conservative voters. So you would be surprised, really shocked, to see any of these three districts not voting for the conservative party or the right party, so to say, right and left, from right and left. So Sacho, this one, red one, is famous for their legal district. So not just a courthouse and prosecutor's offices, but a lot of law firms and related businesses there. Gangnam is famous for commercials, so you might have heard about the COEX, the Convention and Exhibition Center, a lot of five-star hotels, trade centers, and high-rise buildings, department stores, big ones, and so forth. Songpa is more residential, so if you go to Songpa, you can expect a lot of very expensive apartments that are also very tall. So and good school districts. So these three districts have a significant place, not just in Korea, but within Seoul. They're the richest and quite influential. You might have also heard about Bukchon. Bukchon. So if you go to the north, and there are a lot of traditional housings like this. So nowadays they renovate it so it looks nicer, but a lot of hills, hill climbing. These are mostly built in 1920s and they were awarded for excellence by UNESCO in 2009. And I think I mentioned Baekhyunjae House, the one that was used in the movie Assassination, sorry. Now, these were housing for Yangban. Yangban, among the five categories, excluding royalties, Yangban is the highest category. Chungin, these might be like merchants. 중인, and 상민, 평민. These are working class. And then under 양인, you would have 노비, which are slaves, and 백정, which are butchers. So 양반, this is not exactly nobility, but this would be the class where they can move up to nobility depending on how they perform in their jobs, public jobs, and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that this area is actually wealthy, wealthy area in Joseon Dynasty. Nowadays, a lot of tourists go there, so they complain about over tourism, noise, congestion. But historically, it started as a place for Yangban. The reason is north of Hangang, Han River is still closer to the four gates, right? So if you want to be close to the palace, you needed to live in this part of Seoul. Now, there's an interesting place called Insadong. Not sure if you toured Seoul before. This is one of the places that you must visit when you're in Seoul. Um, so this Insadong, they're famous for antiques and artwork and artifacts. And these products have been probably there for a very long time, since Joseon Dynasty era. The reason is they have an interesting story. When Yangban lost their jobs and salary after Japanese colonization, they now have a new office employing different people, right? They started selling their high-valued artwork and artifacts in Insadong. So this is Bukchon, and this is Insadong. And as you can see, if you climb up this hill, it's a lot of work, right? So you're climbing up this hill to go to Bukchon. So if you want to sell your stuff, you can't go to a market that is too far. So the closest market area was Insadong. So all the Yangban there started selling some of their artwork and other stuff by taking them and walking. Takes only about 20 minutes, I guess. And then a lot of these shops that focused on artwork and paintings and other things, fancy things, started settling there as businesses. Even nowadays, Insadong is very famous for these uh, traditional taste of stores and the things they do. So as you can, this is just like Kyoto, right? So Starbucks, they would just write in Korean and provide an atmosphere that is closer to the traditional setting. Now, so that's after. So once again, to summarize, after liberation, Koreans thought that expansion of Seoul was necessary, and the only way to do that was to expand by developing Gangnam area. And Gangnam area was pretty much, just a lot of field, nothing, just, a lot of land without any infrastructure. So what Seoul has, or the city of Seoul, or as a country, people decided was to have mega events in order to use that as a vehicle for development of the city. So what they did was to host a series of mega events to justify development. And this is once again Han River. The first one they hosted was the 1986 Asian Games. As you can see, a lot of stadiums for Asian games. So this is the Jamsil Sports Complex. Now they're home to two baseball teams, LG Twins and Doosan Bears. Um, and then along with that, a lot of apartments, right? So a lot of apartments that house the athletes and press and their family. So that was the first one. The second one was Summer Olympic Games. So this was Shamsir, this was Asian Games. After that, 1988 Olympic Games, they built the Olympic Park and then a lot of apartments. This is called the Olympic Apartments. I'm a bit embarrassed because it's very straightforward in Korea. So because we built all of this because of the 1988 Summer Olympic Games, the name has to be Olympic. So there's this expressway, non-toll road, expressway that connects from Gimpo all the way to this Olympic Stadium. This road is called the Olympic Highway. So you can imagine, right? So I used to be living in one of these Olympic apartments because my parents thought that it was a good neighborhood. So inside the Olympic apartment complex, there's a high school. There's a high school. It's Posong High School. Not sure if you're a fan of BTS, but he is a class of 2011. This is a middle school and this is a high school. I went to both. He also went to both. I was class of 1999. I went to both, and then yeah, that pretty much explains my middle school and high school. After that, so this area is all developed, right? And this is a legal district, this is a commercial. So after developing all of these, now they turn to west of Han River, northwest, and this is where 2002 World Cup games was used to develop the neighborhood. So this is one complex, and there were 12 of these built during the Olympic Games. The Olympic Stadium is right here. I'm sorry, World Cup, sorry. World Cup Stadium is right here. But World Cup not as effective because this is only one stadium, and World Cup is hosted by not a city, but by a country, and we co-hosted with Japan. So the stadiums with that were housed in Korea, one was in Daejeon, one was in Ulsan. So a lot of real estate development, but people say that maybe not as much development uh, or benefits or in terms of outcome, economic benefits. But I think it went well. So event itself went well. Um, one more thing is that the World Cup Stadium is now a bit underused because Korean football or soccer is not as popular as baseball. I mentioned baseball earlier, so in that regard as well, maybe not as much of a return as the Olympic Games. Um, so nowadays, Seoul City, the current mayor was before he was sort of starting to aim for the next presidency or the election. He was sort of trying to get a public consensus on hosting another Olympic Games. Not sure where it's going to be in Seoul, but probably here. So you get the idea. This is somewhat of a strategy that's used by the Korean government in order to secure infrastructure and justify development. So sorry for my constant references to BTS, but if you look at the BTS tour hotspots, which went on like 2 years ago, I think, because that was a 10-year anniversary, you can see the attractions here, Gyeongbokgung and South Gate of Seoul, Uljido, the National Museum. This is, I guess, natural. Seoul Complex, World Cup Bridge. This was also built, another bridge that connects between the north and south of Han River because of World Cup. and Gyeonghaeru in Gyeongbokgung. So most of these are just easily explained by the history of Korea, and now you know why it would be significant. And this is how Seoul has sort of developed in the modern era, especially after Joseon Dynasty. So those would be my 2 cents. So I understand from my conversation with Mo Sensei that you still have snow in Hokkaido. I think that's
A,
exciting.
a
We
little
used to have
bit.
a little bit, okay, so not maybe not as much as this, but yeah, we also just started having a warm weather, and I'm hoping that maybe this weekend would be uh some cherry blossoms, especially in the southern part of the peninsula. That is all for my presentation today. Thank you very much for your attention. I would appreciate any question or comments from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize for tonight. We cannot have the camera to talk to you face by face. But
I'm
let
very sorry. Yes.
no, no, no. Let's tr try to do what we have. So now is the time for question and comments. I think Lee Sensei just gave us a very general kind of introduction of all kind of tourism attraction and also their history and the background about even one city of Seoul. It's very fascinating. I think we have colleagues and students also planning or already researching South Korea as well. So let's give some time. If you have some any question, you either raise your hand or write your question into the Q&A box. So before we have a question coming, my question will be, how do you analyze this tourism data for your research?
Oh,
Mm,
so I think that's a very good and important question.
mm,
So, and I'm not sure if there's a very straightforward way to answer, so I'm sorry if I deviate a little bit.
mm,
Um, So when I first came to work for Sejong, and I only was at Temple for about 2 years, so my experience as a researcher was not very different from that of a grad student, and I was mostly just focusing on very structured data
mm,
that's either from the public domain or something that I would collect myself using a very I would say, proven instrument like survey questionnaire,
mm,
because I thought I needed to publish, and that's the least risk option that I have. And then after I came to Sejong, I wanted to work in consultancy, especially for public organization.
mm.
And they were less interested in survey data, but something that
Oh,
is has more implications, and they don't want deductive research. They don't want to test hypotheses. They just want to see the pattern. So that's when I started working with my colleagues to scrape data from online. So I'm sure many of you are now familiar with the web crawlers and data
mm,
scraping, but my research center would have been one of the first to do that in Korea, especially for KTL. Nowadays, I'm leaning toward use of any data, and especially unstructured data, like
mm,
text data, photos. I'm sure some of you already apply that to your research, but um, yes, anything that we can collect, even though maybe at the beginning we don't have a straightforward way to analyze it,
mm,
there's always some improvement in that regard in many fields of management, but also outside management. So yeah,
mm,
nowadays we're looking at how to match photos, especially that pertains to tourism, and connecting that with maybe unstructured review data, comments, and with funding, hopefully we can also um, tie that with some survey data, which would make it even more useful.
Mm.
Did I answer your question, Mo Sensei?
Yes, definitely. So one follow-up question is, it sounds like soon the artificial intelligence will kind of rapidly take over this kind of work. So
Mhm.
what do you think about that?
I think it's inevitable.
Mm.
And I think you met my colleague Ian
Yes,
at
yes.
last year's ICRTH. He's the one who's a better programmer and more knowledgeable about AI algorithms. So I personally, I think we don't have a way to move away from that. I'm not saying if we don't use AI, we'll perish or anything, but I'm of the view that if we need to use it, then we use it early. We try to do it well. Um,
Mm.
yeah, that's sort of the attitude that I would have regarding that.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really wish to invite him for a lecture as well. So we have a student's question. Thank you for your lecture. I would like
Hmm.
to ask if there is any example in Seoul where the local community can be benefit from tourism activities. This could be a
Um,
question.
it's a very good question. And I think I only mentioned the counter example of Bukchon, where the residents are always complaining because, there are too many tourists, and these tourists do not, let's say, offer any economic benefits to the residents. They
Mm,
might pay the travel agencies, but these travel agencies are not residents of Bukchon. Now, I would say Hongdae, Itaewon. Not sure if these
mm,
names ring any bell, but Hongdae, Itaewon, and some places in Gangnam are quite known for their international atmosphere. Uh,
mm,
I don't know Shinjuku too well, in Tokyo, but
mm,
I'm thinking maybe not so different, right? So people anticipate a lot of international things there, and a lot of the businesses there would be relying on the fact that international tourists would be going there all the time. So yes, these are local communities that have businesses that are tailored to international clientele, be it Koreans or people from other countries, tourists, maybe residents. But yes, these districts definitely, and they would appreciate the fact that there are a lot of tourists. One example is another example is called 설해마을. This is
mm,
a small town in Gangnam, and for some reason there are a lot of French people there. So a
mm,
lot of the businesses there are French in nature,
mm,
like restaurants and other places. And Korean people like going there. Also, French people like going there. I'm sure Japanese people would like that neighborhood as well. So yeah,
mm,
these would be some of the places that local economic terms they benefit from tourism activities.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have any other questions? So our colleagues are more from not a development perspective. They're more from communication and tourism. We have a lot of students like that. But one
Okay.
part you mentioned, qualitative studies gives more meaning, right? If I
Yes.
remember is correct.
Yes.
No, what do you think about this? This is very interesting because you are quite a quantitative person.
Um, so yes, you're very precise in saying that I'm more quantitative, actually mostly quantitative,
Mm,
because even with qualitative data, what I'm thinking is how to somehow quantify the words into a number,
mm,
statistic somehow. Now, qualitative data, I believe, has more depth, but only issue would be that, and this also holds for big data as well. I don't have any idea about how representative that data is. So, um, I think the optimal way, from my view, would be to have somewhat of a sampling frame that I can yield a quantitative statistic from and
mm,
somehow connect that to qualitative data. One of the reasons why when I ask for research funding for data
mm,
collection, I usually ask for multiple waves
mm,
of data collection so that, which they don't like, but that will allow me to do a survey in quantitative terms and also a qualitative questionnaire or slash interview. Having said that, it's not very liked by the funders because it's too expensive, and I think I'm just talking about the ideal. In
mm.
practice, I try to do anything with scrape data and so forth.
Right. So, any other questions? Quick one.
Doesn't even have to be about the presentation, I guess. If
Yeah.
you're curious about Korea nowadays.
Yeah. I think it's very close to us. There's a direct flight to Seoul,
Oh
and
yes, oh
if
yes.
anybody have interest to travel there, any question will be appreciated. Once I took the ferry from Shimonoseki to Busan. It's
Oh yes,
fast and
yes, I know there's one. How long
overnight.
is it, Mo Sensei?
I think you aboard the ferry in the early evening, but
Uh-huh.
the ferry, the ship just stopped there until midnight. They turn on the engine. We arrive at 8 a.m.
Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah.
overnight.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think travel by ferry has a great benefit because you can have a party, you can have onsen inside, and you can also
Oh, nice.
drink. Yeah, there is a lot of activity inside compared with air flight.
It's very, very nice. I should try that.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. So may I ask, for the international tourists travel to Seoul, what are the
Mhm.
profile? Where they come from?
It's a very good question. Actually,
Mm,
I'm quite well informed because last month I gave a lecture on 2025 tourism trend to department managers in Hotel Silla. So I had to update myself. So the number one country is right now China. It
mm,
was Japan in 2023. 2024, now it's reverted back to China at about 800 million. Japan is about 600 million.
mm,
I'm sorry, 6 million, 8 million
mm.
and 6 million. Number
Yeah.
three is Taiwan. Uh,
Wow.
Number four is United States. And these four countries, along with some Southeastern Asian countries, with about zero point 0.5 million every year, we have
Mm,
about, I would say, 18 to 19 million tourists
mm,
every year. So China being about 40%, Japan about 30, and the rest. Uh, Usually from China and Japan, we have younger
mm,
tourists. Chinese tourists used to be group tourists more, but nowadays it's changed. So Chinese, Japanese, Taiwanese tourists, groups of two or three, maybe maximum of four, who would
mm.
be rather younger, stay in Seoul for about 3 days. They're
Wow,
shorter.
interesting.
Yeah,
Mm,
very short. Usually just weekend trips, I think. And then they spend most of their money on
mm,
restaurants. So they like eating Korean food, like samgyeopsal,
mm,
bibimbap, and their favorite activity is shopping. So they spend actually just as much on shopping as
mm.
they would spend on restaurants and hotels or guest houses combined.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, recently I checked the data in Japan for the national data from JNTO,
Yes,
Japan
yes.
National Tourism Organization. The Chinese tourists actually do not spend a lot of money on food in
Mm.
Japan. Compared with the people from Italy, they spend 25% of their money on restaurant, but Chinese only 17%. So it's
Oh,
very
okay.
interesting compared with Korea.
Hmm.
Interesting. That's making me think more. Maybe the food, I don't know, the culture part is more interesting.
Is
Oh,
that because
mm.
Chinese people don't like raw fish?
I
Maybe.
don't know. Something crazy with that. This require more research actually.
Yes,
Mm.
yes. Very good.
Because quantitative data national wide data show us a very general picture. We do not really have a clear answer for that.
You're right. Yes.
Mm.
It's very in the aggregate.
Mm. Okay, I think our audience are shy and most of people joining their graduation party, but I hope our audience on YouTube can be benefit after watching this lecture. Shall I close tonight's session? Okay, so thanks Lee Sensei and thank you everybody to joining our tonight's discussion with the city development of Seoul and its tourism case studies. And wish you have a really good evening and thank you very much and see you our next episode.
Thank you very much.